everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, money and politics reporter, Kyle Kahn-Mullins. Kyle, thanks so much for joining me.
Always great to be here, Brittany. Thanks for having me.
This run-up to Election Day, the Money and Politics team decided to do the net worths of the eldest Trump children. So right now, we are going to talk about Trump's eldest sons, Don Jr. and Eric. So first, to start it off, just give us the hard number. How much are each of them worth?
Don Jr. is worth about $50 million. That is double the last time we estimated his net worth back in 2019 at $25 million. And Eric is worth about $40 million. That's not quite double, but he's up about $15 million.
Still a lot of money, so let's talk about Eric Trump first. What makes up his fortune?
So we estimate that Eric Trump has made almost all of his money essentially from his work at the Trump Organization. He hasn't gone into politics like his brother Don. He didn't start his own fashion line like Ivanka did. Eric has really stuck to, it seems like he's the one that's running the business day to day nowadays. And so, that money has been building up over the years. He's an executive at the company. Assuming he was paid similarly to his sister Ivanka in 2016, we know she was making about $2 million at the time. His salary could be upwards of $3 million today. It all depends on whether he got a raise when he was the one who's now in charge day to day, or there's kind of some assumptions that have to be made here. And then he also owns some stakes in some sort of marginal Trump businesses. There's a consulting firm, a real estate brokerage firm, and those profits have also rebounded to him as well, about $25 million over the years. All in all, we estimate that Eric has about $30 million of cash, and that is only set to grow.
That's a nice chunk of change, but as we know, Eric Trump's wife, Laura, is the co-chair of the RNC. His brother, Don Jr., is pretty involved in politics. Why is Eric not as involved politically?
It seems like he wants to run the company. He did an interview with the Wall Street Journal recently where he talked about his plans, even if his dad wins the election, the Trump Organization's plans to continue expanding in the Middle East and around the world, along with some other sites in the United States. He seems like that is what he is focused on. He does appear on the campaign trail sometimes. He does plenty of Fox News hits, so I'm not trying to argue that he's totally apolitical. He's not. He's very vocally in support of his father. In contrast, I should say, to his sister Ivanka, who has basically completely disappeared from the political scene over the past couple of years. But he's also not quite as political as Don Jr., who has really, really leaned into this and has really started to build a political brand of his own.
So I'm not trying to start a political or a sibling rivalry, rather, but when you're comparing the net worths of Don Jr., Eric Trump, and Ivanka Trump, where does Eric fall?
Eric is the least wealthy of the three kids, and our assessment is that that's likely because he just has less side hustles than the other kids. All three of them made their money, most of their money, I should say, from working for the Trump Organization, from these stakes in a couple of small Trump businesses that they had shares of. But all of them had that kind of baseline. But Ivanka had her fashion line that made her millions over the years. And Don Jr. has regularly tried, before his dad went into office, he was trying investing in different companies. A lot of those didn't go so well as far as we can tell. But he seems to have done pretty well for himself in the past couple of years. That political work seems to have worked out. He's also made some really good, pretty savvy real estate deals that seem to have worked out for him as well. So overall, yes, our assessment is that Eric is a little bit less wealthy than his siblings, but this also always comes with uncertainty. If they have different spending patterns, or if Eric is getting paid more because he's doing more on the business side day to day, maybe he's worth more than we think. It's hard to say.
So now let's talk about his older brother, Don Jr. What makes up his net worth?
So Don Jr.'s also got a lot of cash, like I said, built up from the salary, built up from those businesses over the years. But in recent years, the more interesting piece of this is that he has started up a couple of very conservative-leaning companies and really leaned into politics as a money-making opportunity. So I just want to talk about a couple of those. He started a podcast called Triggered. He also wrote a book called Triggered back in 2019. That was, same name. Podcast started a couple of years later. The book sold almost 300,000 copies, as far as we know. And so because of that, that seems to be kind of an early indicator that, politics might be something that could make Don Jr. some money. Nowadays, he runs a publishing company that publishes conservative books. He runs a hunting-oriented, outdoorsy kind of magazine called Field Ethos that has a circulation of around 25,000, according to Politico. And he has this podcast. He signed an exclusive deal with Rumble that is reported to be in seven figures. We don't know exactly how much he made from that. And so you put all these things together. Oh, he's also got an investment in, I should say, in Public Square, which is a conservative-leaning, kind of anti-woke Amazon alternative. And so you put all these things together, and you start to see that some of his wealth growth over the past couple of years does seem to be from conservative politics. And then the last thing, like I said, is he's made some pretty good real estate deals over the years.
You talked about how Don Jr. and Ivanka Trump have both had some pretty lucrative side hustles. So let's talk about those when it comes to Don Jr. He sought opportunities outside of the Trump business before his father's political career. So how did those fare financially for him?
So his initial efforts to do some investments before his dad ran for president didn't seem to work out super well. He went into business with a guy who was in real estate in Charleston, North Carolina, but both of those projects seem to have flopped. He doesn't appear to have made a lot of money from that. He also tried investing in some other kind of various companies. There was a hydroponic lettuce company. There was one that was repurposing shipping containers. None of them seem to have made him an enormous amount of money. So there's not a ton there that we're considering in our net worth valuation. But after his dad became president, all of a sudden, John Jr. really started leaning into politics, developed this brand of his own. He's now got a podcast that has a daily reach of over 100,000 listeners, and that's not counting the views that it gets on Rumble, which is this kind of anti-woke YouTube alternative that he posts all of his podcast episodes on. So he's definitely made a name for himself in the conservative media sphere.
So he really capitalized on his growing political brand, but Don and Eric are also invested in their own crypto company. What do we know about that?
So this recent crypto company, this is a very, very, just past couple of months, and it's still, details are a little hazy about what exactly this crypto company does, or what services it's going to offer. But the two of them and their dad are very heavily involved in this. They're very heavily involved in promoting it. And we don't know exactly how this is all going to work. We're kind of waiting on more details to come out in these disclosures and in public documents. But the crypto company doesn't seem to have been doing that well. It cut its fundraising goals by over 90% just a couple days ago, according to SEC filings. So what we're really waiting to see is like this is an area where both of them could make a lot of money if Trump wins the election. Because if he wins the election, that might drive interest in this crypto company. And assuming that they have some shares in this crypto company, which we don't know for sure if they actually do, that could then in turn drive up the value of the tokens that they're getting from the company.
If we think about 2015 and 2016, when Donald Trump first waded into politics, we know that Don Jr. and Eric have been really staunch defenders of him ever since and for the decade going onward. But how specifically have their net worths changed or fluctuated since their father took office and beyond?
So we have Don Jr.'s net worth roughly doubling since 2019, which was the last time that we did a valuation of them. And we have Eric's going up about $15 million. So, they've both done quite well, it seems. And I think that the notable thing here is that they've done quite well, despite the fact that they haven't actually gotten very much in the way of assets from their father. Their father hasn't given them an enormous amount of stuff. They've been the biggest project actually that they were involved with at the Trump organization was the DC hotel. They both had stakes in that. They both made $4 million each when the hotel sold. And then all of that money got clawed back by the New York government when a judge ordered them to pay it back, basically finding that it was ill-gotten gains. And their sister actually didn't have to get the money back, interestingly enough, because she managed to separate herself from the suit before the verdict before the judge's ruling came down. So, they haven't really received much in the way of assets from their father. He's worth, depending on the day, anywhere from $4 to $8 billion, depending on True Social's stock price, which tends to wildly swing. And they don't really own any of that either. So it's really, we'll see we'll have to see what happens in the next couple of years, whether their wealth continues to go up or whether their dad starts to, as he's getting older, start to transfer assets to them or not.
Well, per usual, Kyle Kahn Mullins, I appreciate our conversation. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you so much for joining me.
Always great to be here, Brittany. Thanks again.